I exposed my uncle's wife's affair after he tried to convert me to his cult. So this whole mess started when I was 5 years old. My uncle Mark and his family lived right upstairs from us in this old apartment building. We were super close back then, like one big happy family. My uncle was normal, his wife Amy was sweet, and their kids were my best friends. But then my mom noticed something weird. There was this construction site right across the street where they were building some office complex. Every single day around noon, my mom would see Amy sneak over there and come back an hour later with wet hair. My mom put two and two together real quick. Amy was having an affair with one of the construction workers. My mom told my dad, and my dad told my grandpa because he didn't know how to handle it. I remember hiding behind the couch when my grandpa sat Mark down in our living room. Grandpa was trying to be supportive, telling Mark he'd help him through the divorce, that they'd take care of the kids together, all that stuff. Mark completely lost it. He started screaming that his wife would never cheat, that we were all jealous of his perfect marriage, and that we should mind our own business. He grabbed Amy and the kids and they moved out that same week. For 10 whole years, they completely cut us off. No Christmas cards, no birthday calls, nothing. But during those 10 years, something crazy happened to them. Mark grew this massive beard. Amy started wearing full head coverings, and they joined this super strict religious group that was basically a cult. Their apartment windows were always covered, and these weird cult members would show up at all hours for meetings and prayer sessions. The kids stopped going to regular school and got homeschooled by the cult leaders. When my grandpa died, they finally showed up to the funeral, but they weren't the same people anymore. They acted like they were better than everyone else, constantly talking about sin and salvation and how the rest of us were going to hell. The worst part? They somehow convinced my parents to join their group too. My mom started covering her hair, my dad grew a beard, and suddenly our house became another cult meeting spot. I reacted by becoming this obnoxious atheist teenager who quoted science at everyone. I was insufferable, but it was the only way I could fight back against their constant preaching. I eventually calmed down, went to college for physics and philosophy, and thought the whole thing was behind me. But last week at my cousin's wedding, Mark and his cult buddies cornered me. They started lecturing me about how I'd lost my way, how I was spreading dangerous ideas, and how I needed to find faith before it was too late. Then, Mark dropped a classic line that made my blood boil. He goes, "Everything happens for a reason. There's a divine purpose behind everything in this universe." That's when I snapped. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You're right, Mark. Everything does happen for a reason. And the reason you joined this cult was to cover up the fact that your wife was screwing a construction worker 15 years ago." The entire room went silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Mark's face went white, then bright red. Amy looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. His cult buddies didn't know what to say, because they obviously hadn't heard this story before. Mark just stood there, opening and closing his mouth like a fish. Finally, he grabbed Amy and stormed out without saying a word. Half the cult members followed them, and the other half stayed to ask my parents what I was talking about. It's been a week and Mark hasn't spoken to anyone in the family. My parents are furious with me for bringing up old drama, but honestly, I'm tired of pretending their whole religious transformation wasn't built on a lie. Sometimes the truth hurts, but at least it shuts people up.